Hey everybody,
Hey guys.
John and Greta here from the Tolkien Road podcast. Wanted to do a little special video, special podcast episode to talk about the humongous news yesterday that hit the world of Tolkiendom. There will be a Lord of the Rings prequel TV series on Amazon Prime in the near future. It is now official. We'd heard a rumor of this about a week ago. It just actually, the timing of this is weird for us because we had on the podcast, we'd been discussing the future of Middle Earth, and for years now, Tolkien fans have been like, oh well, we loved seeing these things come to life on the screen, but we'll probably never see the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales and so many of the other stories that could be told in this vast universe of Tolkien's. And we did a couple of episodes discussing that, the future of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And at that time it was just more speculation, like, hey, maybe one of these days the Tolkien Estate will look at it and say, like, okay, we found some people we can trust to actually take these stories on.
Yeah.
Because
one day, maybe.
The problem has been that they were not happy, really, that with the way things turned out with the Jackson films. Right.
Yeah.
They had some things they were unhappy about with those. So things looked bleak for a long time, and then all of a sudden, the timing for us, weird. We were just talking about this on the podcast, and then boom, it's like Amazon and the Tolkien Estate were listening to us.
It's really kind of crazy.
I'm absolutely sure they were listening to us. They were probably like, what did John and Greta think? Yeah, we should probably do what they think.
The preeminent scholars
when
it comes to Tolkiendom.
So
yeah, no, it's crazy because it seems almost like a pipe dream, like all that stuff we were talking about, and now it's like, what?
I know it's
seriously? This is happening.
It's actually happening,
and unbelievable.
Well, we don't know much about what's happening. We don't know a lot of clarity. We don't have a lot of clarity about what actually is happening, other than the things that I've already mentioned. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to go through the press release that came out from Amazon yesterday and just establish what we know right now, because even I posted something about it on our Facebook page, and lots of people were like, some people were like, oh, this is cool. Some people were like, oh, I want a movie. Some people were like, what does this even mean? And so we don't, it's worth talking about some of those things. We'll probably have a lot more discussions on this, on the podcast going forward. So if you don't already subscribe, go over and subscribe subscribe to it on iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast listening sources. But here's basically what you need to know about the press release that came out yesterday. So
this is from Amazon.
Yeah, you can go. This is on like a corporate site. This is an official release from Amazon. Okay, announcing this. So what we know, television adaptation. It's a television adaptation. Okay.
So series.
Right. So. And it says exploring new storylines preceding J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, slated to debut exclusively on Prime Video. So this is going to be on Amazon Prime Video, all right, which we watch a couple of shows on there already. One of our favorites on there to watch is The Man in the High Castle, which is kind of a speculative fiction show based on a book that I think is really well done. So that's encouraging.
History, it's really good.
Yeah, that's encouraging to see that they've done that one pretty well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that it's going to be on Prime Video, and we know that it's going to precede Fellowship of the Ring. So that means it's not Lord of the Rings. It's not the story of the Lord of the Rings. This is not a remake of Lord of the Rings, in other words.
Could it be The Hobbit?
So here's the thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about what I think it's going to be after we establish a few more items, but I really don't think... I think if it was going to be a remake of The Hobbit, I think they would have come right out and said that, right? Even though The Hobbit does come before, it's not actually a prequel. The Lord of the Rings is a sequel to The Hobbit, right?
Right. Yes. True.
The Hobbit is not a prequel to Lord of the Rings, so it seems extremely unlikely, or just bad communication, if they intended to do a Hobbit series.
Plus, they've already done a Hobbit movie.
Exactly. So, it's like, why redo it? It was already really successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it just doesn't seem likely that that's what they're planning. Right,
I would agree with that.
I think they would have come right out and said, we're going to do a Hobbit TV series, because everybody knows The Hobbit.
Right.
So, so this, what the other things they say are, it's a multi-season commitment and a potential additional spin-off series. So it sounds like we're getting 2 TV series out of this, right? We're getting a multi-season commitment to 1 TV series. That's a Lord of the Rings prequel series. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about what that might mean. And then an additional spin-off series on top of that. So who knows? We're definitely getting 1, probably 2, it sounds like. Okay? Definitely 1, probably 2 TV series based on this.
Awesome.
This is the most exciting part. This is the most exciting thing to me. This means so much to me, and I'm so glad this is in there. In cooperation with the Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins, and New Line Cinema, a division of Warner Brothers Entertainment. So the important part there, the Tolkien Estate. Okay, this means that the people who are in charge of Tolkien stories, okay, of protecting them and guarding them and putting them and publishing them, have given their blessing to this group. Right?
That's super
hugely important. That was like my number 1 concern that I called out when we talked about the future of Middle Earth, right? Because I do like the Jackson films. I like the Lord of the Rings ones better than the Hobbit ones. But even the Hobbit ones, I've kind of, as we've gone back and watched them recently, I've enjoyed watching them. And are there problems with them? Yes, there's problems. I don't think it's possible to make an adaptation of a book, especially a beloved book, and not have there be problems with it, right? Not have there be things that fans who love the book are going to be like, well, I wish they'd done this, right?
Yeah, it's basically impossible.
That's like a perfection that you just can't possibly achieve as a filmmaker. Now you can come close to achieving that,
right?
And I think there was my biggest concern was that they wouldn't do anything with this anytime soon, right? The Tolkien Estate wouldn't bless anything anytime soon, and at some point further down the road, especially when Christopher Tolkien was no longer with us, because he's been the primary safeguarder of his father's legacy, right? That we weren't going to have as much of there wasn't going to be as much of a scrupulous effort to ensure that these stories, these adaptations, are true to Tolkien's vision, right?
So here's my question: Could they have even done this without the blessing of the Tolkien Estate? I mean, they had to hand over the rights, right?
Well, it all depends, right? Because and I'm not up on all the legalese, but basically the film rights for the Lord of the Rings, okay, Tolkien sold those when he was still alive back in the 60s, right? He sold the film rights for the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. But then there were all these other works that came out after he was gone that he had written, but Christopher really was responsible for putting out to the world.
Okay.
That no one ever acquired the film rights for. Okay, and so it would have been entirely possible, as I understand it, for Amazon to do this without getting the Tolkien Estate's blessing. To basically go to New Line Cinema, who I think owns the rights, and say, we want to do a series based on these things, and and have that. So the fact that the Tolkien Estate is involved in this is very interesting and very encouraging and very interesting. Yeah. Encouraging because I feel like we have a better chance of getting stuff that's true. Really, there's going to be a special emphasis on being true to Tolkien's vision. It would seem, right?
Yes.
And that's so important in this because it would be so easy to make this super violent and sex it up and do all and try to make it relevant in all kinds of weird ways, and that would just not be true to his vision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's wonderful that that the Tolkien Estate has blessed this. They've given a vote of confidence to Amazon in this regard. Actually, let's read what the Tolkien Estate has to say. They said, "We are delighted that Amazon, with its long-standing commitment to literature, is the home of the first ever multi-season television series for The Lord of the Rings. Sharon and the team at Amazon Studios have exceptional ideas to bring to the screen previously unexplored stories based on J.R.R. Tolkien's original writings." Okay?
So previously unexplored. I think that's key.
Yeah. So these are stories that, and the way I read that is they're previously unexplored in movies and film on the screen, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's all extremely encouraging and very interesting. Encouraging because of the things we already laid out, quality control, basically.
Right.
Interesting because this just opens up the possibility, even though it's not called out, but that they have maybe given, sold the rights or rented or leased the rights or whatever. Amazon now has the right to to tell stories with more than just the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. That hasn't been confirmed. I'm not confirming that, but that seems to hint at it if the Tolkien Estate is that involved in it. And maybe what we're dealing with here is they're saying, okay, let's see what you can do with the other material in the Lord of the Rings, right? The appendices in the Lord of the Rings. And then maybe if we're happy with that, we'll let you do, maybe that spin-off series we'll let you tell the stories of the Silmarillion. right? Maybe that's what we're facing. I don't know. I'm speculating with that. But regardless, the Tolkien Estate is involved. That is the most number one important thing about all of this, right?
Yep.
Hugely important. If they had not been, I would have been a little more like, this is disturbing.
Yeah.
But I feel really good about this because the Tolkien Estate is involved. So what will it be? That's kind of the the big question. Let me read what Amazon themselves, the head of Amazon Studios, said about this too. This is from Sharon Tal Iguado, head of scripted series. Probably just butchered her last name. I apologize for that. The Lord of the Rings is a cultural phenomenon that has captured the imagination of generations of fans through literature and the big screen. We are honored to be working with the Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins, and New Line on this exciting collaboration for television, and are thrilled to be taking the Lord of the Rings fans on a new epic journey in Middle-earth. So that's what they had to say about it. So what will this be? What will it be? Let's talk about that for a second. The operative term here they've been using for the most part, the headline term is Lord of the Rings TV series. Okay, and so Lord of the Rings prequel, and so that's what everybody sees. And so originally people heard about this when there was a rumor about this. People were like, well, maybe it's just Lord of the Rings, and they're going to redo it. Okay, before this was announced, and I think people were like, oh man, that would be lame if they redid Lord of the Rings. Right? We already did movies that are won all these Academy Awards and were hugely successful.
Right.
People love those movies.
Like,
right.
why go back to the same watering hole?
Exactly. Yeah. And people will do that for a big brand because, I mean, how many times have they remade Spider-Man?
True.
Right?
True.
So, they do that in order to make money and for a variety of other reasons. But
the movies have already been hugely successful.
They have. And here's what I think is why they're using Lord of the Rings in this as the big thing that people will notice, right? It's a brand. Right, it's the most instantly recognizable brand. They already know it was hugely successful as a film series.
Yes,
and so for a nerd like me, for a Tolkien nerd like me, I'm going to be like, well, why didn't they call it the Silmarillion, or why didn't they call it the Lord of the Rings Appendice? And it's like, they want to create buzz, so they use terms that people are going to recognize.
Terms. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
I think about it kind of like Star Wars, where the original Star Wars movie episode, which is now known as A New Hope, episode 4, was originally just Star Wars, right? It came out. When it came out, it was the only thing in that universe. It was just Star Wars. But now Star Wars is the brand for the whole storytelling universe, right? Okay,
right.
Star Wars.
Because people know it.
Exactly.
You know what they're going to get, right?
Star Wars, so Lord of the Rings is the name that it seems like they're using to brand this thing.
And it encompasses everything, right?
It does.
It's a pretty all-encompassing term.
So in the back of this here book, this is Return of the King, the third part of Lord of the Rings. And in the back of this, there are all these appendices. And so Appendix A has all these other stories. The story on Arwen and Aragorn and their romance, the longer story of their romance. It has a history of the Rohirrim. It has a history of the kings of Numenor, a history of the dwarves. And then you get into Appendix B, and it's like, it's got a history of the Second Age, like a timeline of the Second Age, and then a timeline of the Third Age. Nothing from the First Age, because that's all in the Silmarillion. But it's got a detailed timeline of the Third Age. There's 3,000 years of history in the Third Age alone for the Lord of the Rings, right? There's 3,000 years of history in the Second Age. You can find in a Calabath within the Silmarillion, or you can find an outline of it in the Lord of the Rings Appendix B. So there's plenty of material to start with, right? It's not very detailed, but there's plenty of material to start with in the Lord of the Rings itself,
right?
Okay, and the appendices that are attached to it. So I think the Lord of the Rings is just the operative term they're using to catch people's attention. Sure. Okay, we know it's going to be a prequel. We know it's not a remake of the Lord of the Rings. Now, what about these? The Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales especially, although there's a 12-volume History of Middle-earth series that you could also use, and there's other things out there as well that attach themselves to Middle-earth that are, writings of Tolkien's. There's things they're not even published that they could potentially reference, right? There's the Children of Hurin, there's Beren and Luthien, all kinds of other stories, right? Yeah. So...
it's not. Beren and Luthien makes kind of some sense because they just came out with that.
I would, you know me, like I'm telling you, for those who have not read the Silmarillion, Beren and Luthien is in my opinion, is the best story in the Silmarillion, and it is just perfect. It would be perfect
You can only probably get
series.
one series out of that, though.
Maybe you could get maybe one season, but it goes. It's a story within the context of the overall Silmarillion, right? And I've written about this on some places, how I'd love to see this done previously, and I'm gonna have to go back and refresh some of those thoughts over the next couple of weeks and months. But the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales just have a ton of material in them that they could potentially pull from if this is part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? We don't know. We have nothing official on that yet, but we just know that the Tolkien Estate is at least happy with what Amazon has proposed to them is what they want to do. So maybe these two bad boys. So if you haven't read them yet, time to get reading. And you can go over to the Tolkien Road podcast, and you can have a listener's guide for you over there as you walk through them. Because the Silmarillion is a challenge. We're going to hit up Unfinished Tales. We've done a little bit of Unfinished Tales. We've done all of the Silmarillion over there, and all of the Lord of the Rings, by the way. So you can listen to the podcast over there.
We're working.
We're almost done with Lord of the Rings, and then we're going to do the Hobbit after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there's so much. There's so much in Tolkien's universe, and I don't. And so we talked about the Hobbit. I don't think it's a Hobbit redux. It would have said the Hobbit if they were going to do the Hobbit. Is how I view that.
I would agree.
Baron and Luthien. That's just the one I'd love to see. Please. I'd love to see that.
Well, just given the fact that they just came out with that special edition, I feel like it kind of makes sense.
The special book that came out earlier this year, right? So who knows what the future will hold? It's an extremely exciting time.
I can't imagine it will be too long before we know more.
I know.
Is there a projected release date that we know of?
It sounds like they're getting started.
Like next year, maybe?
My guess is they've already done some, like, they've already got a sense of where they're going.
Right.
I don't think they want to tell too much yet, but I think they already have a pretty strong sense of where they're going, at least at the high level for this thing. And as now that they've announced it, they can start doing, like, they can start casting and finding, finding showrunners and directors and all that kind of stuff. So I think over the course of the next year, we're going to be learning a lot. Will we have the first episode within the next year? I don't know, but maybe.
Possibly.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's just with the pace in which the rumor hit a week ago, and then this was announced.
Seems to be moving quickly.
Yeah. So you add that to the movies about Tolkien's life that are coming out in the next year. It's going to be a really exciting time to be a Tolkien fan, and I just couldn't be more excited to see what the future holds.
Me neither.
Again, the thing is, the Tolkien Estate's involved, so that just gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to do a good job. Not a promise, not guaranteed. Right. Nothing ever is, but
it's like this extra layer of accountability.
Exactly. Right? It's like an accountability to making sure that whoa, that's not really how Tolkien would have seen this, right?
Right.
So, exciting.
Very exciting.
I will say that I hope this also opens the door to other media, right? I would love, we've talked about it before, I would love to see graphic novel adaptations of all the stories. Like high quality graphic novels. Like not like, flimsy comic book, like bad drawing adaptations, but like high quality graphic novels done by there's so many great Tolkien artists out there who just do it for the love of the material. They don't get paid for it. I would love to see, more on that front. These stories told in a graphic novel format. So
I can't help but think this is just kind of going to open the door for that kind of thing.
I'm so excited, people. I need to like stop this video right now, and I'm gonna
He's gonna burst into tears. Tears of joy and happiness.
I do. It's been hard to kind of like focus on work for the last day since this came out. I'm just like, whoa, this is amazing.
It's exciting.
Well, anyway, so I think thanks for watching. We're gonna stop. We're going to stop just gushing with our segment right now. But we'd love to hear from you, whether on Facebook in the comments, if it's on YouTube in the comments below there. Send us email at tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. And, hey, keep in touch with us on the podcast. If you're not already a listener, listen over there. We're going to be talking about these things as we learn more.
Yes.
And it's an exciting time to be a Tolkien fan.
It's crazy exciting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.